In our modern society, it can be easy to blame others for our actions or mistakes. Sometimes people are too quick to point fingers at one another rather than taking responsibility for themselves. It's hard to admit when we're wrong, but it's important to take accountability for our decisions so we can learn and grow as human beings. When we refuse to admit our guilt, it can end up causing more damage in the long run. Sometimes this type of behavior can be seen in courtrooms where people are tried for crimes they may or may not have committed. This was the case for a woman named Amanda Knox, who was accused of murdering her roommate while studying abroad in Italy. Despite claiming her innocence, she was convicted and sentenced to 26 years in prison. However, after years of appeals and much public debate, her conviction was finally overturned, and she was set free. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I'll be sharing with you the story of a girl who was framed by her own family. Make sure to stick around until the end of the video, because there is a twist that you won't want to miss. Amanda was an exchange student from the United States who moved to Seattle at the age of 18. She soon enrolled at the University of Washington, where she studied creative writing. When she turned 20, Amanda decided to spend a semester abroad in Florence, Italy. While there, she rented a flat with several other students, including a young woman from Britain named Meredith Kirker. The two quickly became friends and enjoyed exploring the city together. However, one night Meredith didn't come home after work and Amanda assumed that she was at a friend's house. In reality, Meredith had been brutally murdered inside their home. The following morning, Amanda returned home alone and called Meredith's family to express her concern over her friend's whereabouts. After a few hours, police arrived at the flat and broke down the door after no one answered. Inside, they found Meredith's body lying on her bedroom floor, covered in blood. As the investigation continued, police learned that the apartment had been ransacked and many items were missing. They also discovered DNA evidence linking an unknown man to the crime scene. Despite these findings, for some reason, they seemed convinced that Amanda was responsible for Meredith's murder. After questioning Amanda for hours, police finally brought her in for formal questioning without telling her why. When asked about her relationship with Meredith, Amanda replied that they weren't close friends, but that they occasionally hung out together. She then told officers that she had left for school at 7 a.m. the day of the murder and returned home later that evening. According to her, she hadn't seen anyone else in the apartment when she came home. When asked whether she knew any men who could have possibly committed the crime, Amanda suggested that police look into Rudy Guetti, the man whose DNA was found at the scene. At the time, he was a drifter with numerous petty convictions. But no one suspected that he was connected to Meredith's family. Despite Amanda's claims of innocence, the Italian officials weren't convinced. One of the first pieces of evidence that raised suspicion against her was the fact that she had cleaned the bathroom where the crime took place. She said that she did so to protect her roommate's dignity, but prosecutors claimed that she was trying to cover up her involvement. They also pointed out that she had called Meredith's family after spending hours alone with her dead body. Lastly, Amanda's demeanor during questioning was odd. She would laugh uncomfortably and sometimes appeared confused, which led police to believe that she was hiding something. They began to suspect that Amanda and Meredith got into a fight that ended in the young American's death, and although Amanda wasn't directly involved, she helped cover up the crime. Unfortunately for Amanda, the police never focused on finding the real killer, Rudy Guetti. Instead, they twisted her seemingly innocent actions and statements to fit their narrative that she was guilty. Soon, she was charged with murder, sexual assault, and use of a knife during the commission of a crime. During her trial, Amanda sat quietly listening to testimony being given against her. When it was her turn to speak, she denied all charges and insisted that she was innocent. She even offered to take a lie detector test to prove it. However, the judge wouldn't allow it. As evidence was presented, it became clear that everything was circumstantial. There was no physical evidence directly linking Amanda to the crime scene, and no witnesses who saw her commit the murder. As the trial went on, it seemed like the jury was already convinced of Amanda's guilt. She watched helplessly as the prosecutor described what they believed happened the day of the murder. According to them, Amanda and Meredith got into a heated argument after Amanda couldn't get into a party that Meredith had attended. In a fit of rage, Amanda grabbed a pair of scissors and slashed Meredith across the neck, killing her instantly. Soon after, Amanda's ex-boyfriend, Rafael Salicito, arrived at the apartment and helped her clean up the mess. Afterwards, They left the apartments separately to throw away the evidence. However, neither Amanda nor Raphael had any motive for committing the crime. Investigators were unable to provide a motive for Amanda, but claimed that Raphael was jealous of Meredith. As the trial dragged on, things began to crumble apart. Witness testimony was inconsistent and physical evidence was unreliable. For example, DNA samples taken from Amanda's clothes had initially tested negative for Meredith's blood, but suddenly tested positive after retesting. Other evidence was simply ignored, such as the fact that Meredith's killer had left his DNA behind. As expected, Amanda and Raphael were found guilty. The judge ruled that both were guilty of murder, sexual assault, and robbery, sentencing each of them to 26 years in prison. Amanda's parents immediately hired lawyers and began appealing the decision. News of the verdict spread around the world, making headlines and sparking public outrage. Many people believed that Amanda was innocent and had been framed by the police. This was largely due to inconsistencies and questionable decisions made throughout the investigation and trial. As Amanda awaited her appeal, she was transferred to a different prison where she spent most of her time alone in a small cell. Although she had lost a lot of weight and suffered from anxiety attacks, her spirits remained high. She was determined to prove her innocence and return to the U.S. meanwhile. Investigators began looking into the life of Meredith. They discovered that she had been involved in a number of dangerous situations before the incident. In addition, she had been spotted arguing with several women near her home just days before she died. This led investigators to question whether Amanda and Raphael could have acted in self-defense. Unfortunately for Amanda, her supporters, Italian officials, refused to budge. They stood firm on their belief that she was guilty and that her conviction should stand. Despite the mounting evidence in her favor, it seemed as though no one was willing to listen. Thankfully, Amanda's case eventually made its way to the Supreme Court of Cassation, Italy's highest court. After hearing arguments from both sides, the court agreed to review the evidence in the case. Their decision was unanimous. All 7 judges agreed that Amanda was innocent and that the evidence against her was flawed. The court acknowledged that investigators had ignored crucial evidence, including the fact that the killer left his DNA at the scene. They also pointed out that the DNA evidence against Amanda was unreliable, and that witness testimony was often contradictory. Because of this, they overturned her conviction and ordered her to be released. However, this wasn't the end of the story. Italian officials still weren't convinced that Amanda was innocent. They wasted no time appealing the ruling and trying to keep her in Italy. Despite public backlash, they were determined to prosecute her once again. But it seemed that their efforts were in vain. Amanda was finally free and flew back home to the U.S., where she was greeted by thousands of supporters. Over the next few years, she worked to rebuild her life and move on from the traumatic experience. It was later revealed that Amanda had actually been framed by her own father. He had been having an affair with a woman named Alexia Moroni, and they had recently gotten married. To hide the affair, her father forged her mother's signature on divorce papers and filed for divorce. When her mother found out, she confronted him, and he admitted that he had cheated on her. Furious, her mother vowed to make his life miserable and ruin his career. He desperately tried to come up with a solution, but nothing seemed to work. That's when he came up with a crazy plan to frame Amanda for murder. With the help of his lover Alexia, he began planting false evidence, leading the police to believe that Amanda killed Meredith. To this day, Amanda's family has never apologized for what they did. After her release, her father and sister began living under new identities, while her mother moved to Mexico. As for Amanda, she is now married and working as an editor in New York. Although she was wrongfully convicted and spent 4 years in prison, she has chosen to forgive her family and move on with her life. She hopes that by sharing her story, other victims of wrongful convictions will find strength and courage to keep fighting for justice. What do you think of Amanda's story? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. Thanks for watching.